On her first day at college, Delaney tries to force her way inside the boys' dorm, but when the warden doesn't let her in, she starts shouting for her friend Zion's name while standing outside the hostel. This creates a lot of drama, and when Zion hears about it, he rushes to go meet her and take her to a secluded place. Once away from others, she expresses her feelings for him, but he coldly declares that things between them ended long ago and that he's not interested in relationships. However, she acts stubborn and reminds him of his promise to go to university together, but seeing him unaffected, she gives him a robot toy which he silently accepts and leaves. We then see Zion looking at the robot and thinking about their past. Time shifts back to 2009 when Delaney shifted to a town with her family and went to meet her father's friend's family. There she meets Zion, and their parents reveal that the two have been good friends in childhood and that their engagement was decided back in their childhood as well. Zion expresses his urge to call the engagement off, leaving everyone stunned, but he covers it up as a joke. However, later Delaney overhears Zion and his friends roasting her appearance and calling her little monster due to the accidental bump on her forehead. She confronts him if he really wants to call their engagement off, but when he says yes, she refuses to do so and leaves the place. She meets him a few days later at a drugstore where Zion helps her buy the ointment for her bump. He even treats her to a few snacks, but she ends up leaving angrily when he refers to her forehead bump as a horn. Delaney vows to avoid him there onwards. Next day at school, they end up sharing a bench due to unavailability of other seats, and Delaney's father is revealed to be a teacher there. Delaney meets an old classmate from her hometown during lunch break, and the prospect of meeting someone she knows makes her quite relieved. Bruno persuades her to have good terms with fellows. Later, she fails to answer a question in Professor Adams' class, while Zion answers it promptly. He advises her to focus on memorizing formulae for math instead of noting everything down, but she gets harsh, reminding him of his grades being lower than hers. Hearing this, her classmates tell her that he is the topper of the class and couldn't do well in the latest exams because of preparing for a robotics exam. She becomes more nervous and leaves the classroom. Meanwhile, Bruno happens to see her sad and takes her to his secret hideout in school, which is the school's rooftop. He calmly asks her about her problem, and she admits facing difficulty in making friends in class. He motivates her to give things some time and be patient. Delaney returns to class after finally calming down and suggests switching seats with Isla, who is sitting in her seat to be closer to Zion. Zion seems to be against the idea but doesn't speak up openly, and she takes Isla's seat. Her new deskmate, Harry, turns out to be quite studious and rude, and finds her annoying if she tries to seek help regarding studies. Meanwhile, her neighboring student tells her to check her desk as Zion placed something for her there. Zion's mother had given him a box of golden cakes to give to Delaney. She finds the box inside her desk and angrily returns it to him despite him saying that they're sent by his mother. Seeing this, Isla immediately grabs the lunchbox, saying she can have them since she loves golden cakes. On the other hand, Zion's friends express their sympathies for the girl who now has to bear Harry's tantrums because the boy's jealous of Zion, who always tops the exams. Later, Delaney goes to see her father in the staff room and finds a brand new diary on his desk that the man bought for her since her old diary got ruined by her younger brother. His love makes the young girl emotional, and the pair of father and daughter share a sweet moment. Next day, Isla notes down the names of students speaking in class while the teacher is out. Harry points out Delaney and another fellow who are exchanging notes, but Zion overcomes the situation by mentioning other students in front of the teacher so that Delaney may not be punished alone. And as expected, the teacher scolds them all and punishes them to clean the classroom. At night, Delaney's father brings her an abundant amount of snacks and advises her to share them with her classmates in order to develop good relationships with her fellows. But she still seems reluctant to do so. Her father also requests Zion to accompany her to the school and take care of her in the class, and he obediently follows the command. Meanwhile, Delaney manages to muster up some courage with Bruno's motivation and succeeds in making some friends after sharing chocolates with them. Her new friends include Zion's deskmate Isla as well. During sports hour, Zion saves her from getting hit by a basketball, which leaves her flustered. She later shares chocolates with her whole class, including Zion, and looks happy when he eats it despite another classmate urging him not to. As the weekend arrives, Delaney's mother asks her to pick up her brother from the game center because he's gone for too long. However, she meets Zion and a few of her other class fellows there who invite her to play games with them. Isla even offers to switch their seats back, saying Zion wishes to help her with studies since she joined in the middle of the school year. The group of youngsters then invite her to join in a dancing game. She hesitates at first but agrees after a while and even defeats Liam. Then they go for a toy picking game where she challenges Zion to play it. Zion succeeds in getting a stuffed dinosaur, which Delaney really likes, but she herself can't manage to pick any, and returns home with her brother. She requests to get a mobile phone at dinner for the ease of contacting her classmates, but her mother finds it too expensive. Next day, Zion's benchmate informs her to exchange seats again as Zion wants to assist her in studies. Being asked by his friend, Zion tells the background story of this seat exchange, that he had requested the teacher to allow them for it. Moreover, he even asks Maria to give the stuffed toy he won the previous day to Delaney. The girl tells her that it's from Zion, who plays aloof, saying he simply picked it for her because Isla and Maria already had one for themselves. They have a debate on whether the toy is an alligator or a baby dinosaur, and Delaney announces her decision to call it alligator, despite the tag saying it's a baby dinosaur. One day, Zion checks on Delaney analyzing her maths test and taunts her of her low grades. She retorts by calling him rude and telling him about Bruno's encouraging attitude towards her, which makes him a little jealous. He then helps her mark the important questions for the ease of mind. Later, she meets their classmate Yana, who has been absent for a few days. She's a gorgeous and brilliant girl and also a good friend of Zion, which makes Delaney a little jealous and overconscious of her deficiencies, as Yana is far better in studies, appearance, and confidence. Every guy wants to be her friend. She is good in English as well, while Delaney is incapable of even giving her introduction in English. Again, Bruno helps her by giving her a few English books. Zion also participates by making notes for her. Yana gets elected to make drawings for an upcoming festival, and she invites Delaney to collaborate with her in designing the classroom board. Delaney is in a state of continuous jealousy on looking at the frankness between Zion and Yana, but when she's about to fall from the stool during board decoration, Zion prevents her from falling, but her face gets smeared with the chalk. This makes Liam and Maria laugh at her, causing them to get into a trivial argument, as she blames him for deliberately pushing her towards the board. Seeing their argument, Liam and Maria ask out loud if there is something going on between them, but the pair simultaneously asks them to shut up. Delaney works very hard for English proficiency. Her father appreciates her and praises Zion for accompanying her on his request. Hearing this, she feels bad thinking he's been accompanying her on her father's request, while she thought he genuinely wanted to be her friend. She feels insulted and decides to ignore him. Next day, she goes to school alone without waiting for him and avoids him in the classroom as well. However, she accidentally bumps into a pair of students and their juice gets splashed on her uniform. But Zion reaches at the right moment and covers her with his jacket in order to save her from embarrassment. When he asks her about the reason for ignoring him, she says that she doesn't want him to help her on her father's request, but the boy ends up laughing at her statement, saying he has another reason to help her. He reminds her of an incident from their childhood where Zion peed in her bed during a stayover because he was too scared to go to the toilet alone. The young boy had requested her to keep it a secret in exchange for him taking her on a date the next time they met. The girl looks amused as he reveals that to be the reason he took her to eat snacks the day they met at the drugstore. They plan to explore the city on the upcoming weekend, and once again she's left in awe of his knowledge about street food. They also meet Bruno during their exploration, and Zion looks jealous to see them interact happily. Later, they go to watch a movie and come across Yana, who is accompanied by some other boy, leaving Delaney to think that Zion must be jealous, but he looks nonchalant about it. It turns out that their weekend is set to bump into people from their school as they come across Professor Adam on their way back home, so they hurry to hide from the teacher, having no stamina to bear with him even on the holiday. While they're hiding from the teacher, it starts to rain, and Zion covers Delaney with his jacket, bringing her closer to himself. We later see them promise to go to their dream university together, and this is the promise that Delaney mentioned earlier upon meeting Zion in university. Next day, Delaney makes beautiful best wishes cards for her friends, owing to the upcoming occasion of New Year. But Maria tells her that Zion does not like celebrating such festivals, so she does not give his card to him, but Zion asks her to give his card to him. He mocks it for not being pretty enough, causing her to try and snatch it back from him, but he doesn't allow that. In the afternoon, the class gets their math tests marked, leaving Teacher Adam furious because they didn't perform well. He threatens to switch their seating arrangements if they don't improve, so Delaney spends her entire New Year festival trying to improve her mathematics because she wants to keep sitting with Zion. She doesn't even step out for the New Year's dinner, but Zion and her other friends come to her home and bring her with them to enjoy the New Year celebrations. They manage to reach the bridge just in time for fireworks, as the group of friends hold hands while shouting Happy New Year. Later that night, Delaney jots her New Year wish down in her diary that is nothing but to stay with Zion for the whole next year. Next day, they go to the bridge to burn the New Year's wish lantern, and they both seem to be wishing for the same thing, that is staying together. Delaney gets sick during semester exams and leaves early after finishing her exam. So Zion visits her at home to share notes and her result card with her, but she doesn't find her grades impressive. When he finds out that she's going to visit her hometown for the spring festival, he leaves her his phone number for contact. However, the poor boy seems to miss her already as he asks his mother if there's a way to contact the girl in her hometown. He even covers it up, saying he's asking for Maria, leaving his mother to try hiding her smile as she's aware of her son's introvertedness. On the other hand, Delaney completes the festival decorations with Bruno, and he invites her to light fireworks with him, but she prefers to stay home. Next day, Bruno comes to her home to share best wishes for the festival, but leaves quietly upon finding her talking to Zion on the telephone. Upon returning to the school, she's shocked to see that her seat isn't switched, despite scoring low grades in the exams. Turns out that Zion intentionally left his paper unfinished to avoid getting good grades and being switched to sit with someone with high grades. This makes the girl delighted, and she treats him to lunch at an expensive restaurant. Zion learns that it's her birthday, so he takes her to the planetarium, and they enjoy watching the star alignments according to their birth dates. Next day, Maria and Delaney take up Zion and Liam's cleaning duty on their request as they were getting late for a basketball game. The girls get approached by one of Zion's admirers, and she asks Delaney to pass her letter to the young man. While Delaney takes the paper, Maria tears it down, saying they need to guard against Zion's admirers because the less competition, the better. It appears that she's aware of her friend's feelings for her deskmate. However, Delaney denies the truth and even scolds her for sabotaging the letter, causing them to argue and stop talking to each other. Later, she tells Zion to start going to school on their own and even rewrites the torn letter on a new sheet before placing it on Zion's desk the next day. However, he mistakes it to be from her after recognizing her handwriting and looks happy about it. On the other hand, Maria stays angry at her and goes with some other girls during lunch break. Zion goes home to read the letter and looks so delighted after reading it that he brings her a gift the next day. He also finds a chocolate jar on his desk that the same girl had asked Delaney to give to him. She tries to tell him about the girl, but Maria beats her to it, telling Zion that all of this stuff is not from Delaney, but Kylie, which upsets him, and he forbids Delaney to do that again. Delaney feels too alone in class as Maria has cut off with her, so she goes for lunch and the fitness test with another fellow. Zion participates in the sports festival, and Delaney goes to cheer him up, but Maria's ignorance and Yana's closeness with Zion makes her upset. Not to mention, Kylie keeps talking to her, and even decides to accompany her to lunch every day. Zion does not invite her directly at his birthday party, but hides the invitation card in her painting, which she sees too late. When she finally arrives at his home, the party is already over, but Zion celebrates his birthday again with her with a piece of cake that he kept for her, and gifts her a mobile phone. She has to accept it on his insistence, but her family stays oblivious of the device. Maria's favorite diary gets accidentally spoiled by Delaney, which provokes her, but Delaney manages to console her, and after a long argument, they become friends again. Zion even teases his deskmate to treat him in the same special way the next time he gets upset. During lunch break, their group of 4 friends eat together when they're approached by Kylie, who tells Zion that she's not interested in him anymore. She also apologizes to Delaney for using her to access the boy and expresses her desire to be good friends. Delaney notices that she's having trouble seeing the board clearly and asks her mother to get her glasses changed, but the lady urges her to sit closer to the board instead of being a backbencher. They also end up having an argument on whether she should opt for science or art subjects in the future. Delaney wants to study science to stay closer to Zion, while her mother favors arts because that way her father can help her in studies and thus score admission in a good university. She angrily leaves the dinner and goes to her room. She's soon followed by her father, who gives her a brand new mobile phone, citing her demand for it. Feeling guilty, she tells him about the phone that Zion gave her, and her father discloses that he's already aware of its presence. He urges her to return the phone to Zion since she now has one, and promises to support her in every decision regarding studies. However, her teachers also ask her to reconsider her choice of field as she's not as good in her studies, but Zion tells her to follow her heart with his support. So she finally decides to take science and submits her admission form to teacher Adam, who is busy scolding Zion for his poor performance in the mathematics exam. She's well aware of the reason for his poor performance, but still reciprocates his sincerity with her support, just the way he supported her. Later, Delaney asks Maria to recommend a good hairstylist, and the girl simply offers her own services. They end up with strange-looking bangs, leaving Delaney embarrassed as she wears a hoodie before they head out to meet Zion and Liam at the billiards club. She keeps trying to hide her face, but Zion helps her embrace it with confidence. calling her bangs quite cute. She also encounters a boy there with whom she had an argument, and he keeps following them on her way back home. On the other hand, Teacher Adam visits her home and discloses to her mother that Delaney has chosen science. This upsets the older lady greatly, and she scolds her daughter, almost emotionally blackmailing her for being a grown-up and not paying heed to her parents' advice. Nevertheless, her father intrudes and convinces her mother to let her go for science only if she earns good marks in the monthly assessment. Not only that, he helps her realize how parents grow insecure watching their kids grow up. Despite pretending to be angry, her mother doesn't forget to take care of her needs and reminds her of the condition to score good grades if she wishes to opt for science as her major. Once again, Bruno and Zion come to her rescue with notes. She keeps studying hard even during Zion's absence while he's away to prepare for a competition in the training camp. Hard work finally pays off, and Delaney gets good results, bringing excitement. On the other hand, Maria and Kylie happen to see Liam hang out with another girl and devise a scheme to uncover his feelings for Maria. For this purpose, Maria arranges her birthday party and invites everyone except Liam. However, they fail to note down his reaction as she has to cancel her plan immediately, with Teacher Adam's intervention, who instructs her to focus on studies. Maria then decides to just hang out with Delaney and Kylie, but they're surprised to see Liam come to the mall, urging her to celebrate her birthday. Seeing this, Delaney decides to go home, but she comes across some gangsters who lure her to an abandoned alley by stealing her mobile phone. The gangsters turn out to be companions of the boy who had an argument with her in the billiards club. They almost manage to harm her, but Zion arrives there with Liam and another group of friends. Turns out that Zion had asked his friend Jason to look out for Delaney in his absence, and he informed Zion about the mishap as soon as she was surrounded by the goons. He then drops her home before running back to the training camp, where he's punished by the teachers for breaking the rules as they're not allowed to step out at night. However, he doesn't tell Delaney about it, asking her to focus on her studies when she calls to check on him. He manages to do well in the test, but still refuses to tell the reason for his little sneak out to Teacher Adam. However, his competitor Harry tells the whole matter to the teacher, as he had overheard him the night he sneaked out. When their final results come out, Delaney's mother is delighted to see that she scored the required percentage to opt for science, and even returns her handphone that she had taken away. On the other hand, Mr. Adam also appreciates her good performance, but urges her to change her seats, as he seems to be observing her and Zion and thinks that they're the reason for each other's mediocre performance. Their school organizes an inter-class basketball match, and their team keeps getting behind others because Zion is ill and refuses to play. However, when he sees Delaney come to cheer him up with a play card, he decides to play despite all the tiredness and helps his team win. However, he doesn't appear at school the next day. Teacher Adam announces his victory in the maths competition, much to everyone's joy except Harry. He tells others that the boy should have been disqualified for going out of the dorms at night, but got away with punishment alone. But no one pays heed to his words, causing him to leave angrily. On the other hand, Delaney visits her friend after school and finds out that he's sick while his parents are out of town. So she prepares porridge for him, and they discuss staying together through thick and thin and support each other. Next day, her mother finds out about her feelings for Zion from her diary, causing the young girl to be extremely angry over this and to throw her diary out of the window. She later goes out to find it, but a trash picker seems to have taken it away. Delaney spends a few hours at Zion's place, where he tries to cheer her up by showing her a robot toy that he made himself. He later drops her off at home, but the pair of mother and daughter still look upset at each other. It doesn't help that Delaney fails to score good grades in her next tests, so she pays heed to Teacher Adam's advice and switches seats with Liam, causing Zion to be puzzled at her actions. She even asks Maria not to mention Teacher Adam's matter to Zion and requests her to come up with a reasonable excuse to justify the seat exchange. As expected, Zion asks her about the matter on their way back home, but eventually decides against pressing her for an answer. Next day, she finds Zion talking with Yana and gets jealous when Liam mentions that they seem to be talking about a play. However, Zion has no idea about it, and when Delaney asks him if he likes plays, he expresses his willingness to learn about it, thinking she's interested in them. This makes the girl even more jealous, and she angrily walks away. Watching them grow distant, Maria and Liam come up with a plan to bring them together over the weekend and invite them separately to a concert. The pair meets Jason outside the school, who is the same boy who informed Zion about Delaney when she was cornered by the gangsters. The young boy asks for some money from Maria and Liam, stating his father's strict hold on his pocket money. However, Kylie takes him for a robber and starts hitting him until the situation is explained to her. On the day of the concert, Delaney's mother gives her a dress as an apology for reading her diary, and the girl delightfully accepts it, wearing it to the concert. There, Maria tricks her into going ahead with Zion, saying she's running late. Delaney finally opens up to the boy and tells him about the real reason for switching seats, relieving him of the worry that she finds him annoying. On their way back from the concert, they find Kylie and Jason beating the robber that Kylie had challenged the boy to catch. Hearing that he's a robber, Zion and Delaney also start beating him, and they're soon joined by Maria until Maria suddenly recognizes his voice to be Liam's. Turns out that Liam was waiting for Maria at the street side, and his long overcoat and suspicious behavior led the pair to think that he's the bully who snatches people's money. The group of friends apologize to the young man and even bring him to eat some snacks, but Liam looks inconsolable, crying loudly like a child until Maria scolds him to shut up. Much to everyone's surprise, he immediately becomes quiet. Later, they catch some bullies threatening Delaney's brother to give them some money, and the group finally teaches them a lesson before the pair of siblings head home with Zion. Zion gifts her a painting box as he's aware of her interest in painting. She decides to take part in a painting competition on her school's behalf, but her mother urges her against it, telling her to focus on studies since it's an important turning point of her life. However, Zion forcefully submits her admission form, and even her father supports her by taking her mother and brother to an outing on the day of competition. However, her brother decides to stay home, leaving them worried, as the older man has to leave with his wife now. When Zion learns about her dilemma, he takes Maria and Liam's help, who come to her home and engage her brother while she quietly escapes with Zion to the competition. She denies Zion's request to know what she drew, but ends up winning the competition, and treats her friends to a meal to thank them for their support. The painting is later revealed to be a back view of Zion while sitting in the classroom. They all discuss their future aspirations during the meal, such as Jason wanting to be a soldier and Liam wishing to become a pilot. When she's asked about her choice in career, she fails to answer the question as she doesn't know it yet. On their way back, she discusses things with Zion and tells him that she doesn't know about her final goal yet, as painting is just a hobby. But he encourages her to explore her hobby until her passion is revealed. The girl expresses her current aim to be able to secure admission in a top-ranked university, and he vows to help her with it. She ends the current semester with yet again good grades thanks to Zion's help, and requests her mother's permission to go on a camping trip with her friends. The older lady looks a bit reluctant, but agrees with Bruno's assurance to accompany her there. Delaney finds Zion's jealousy funny as he tries to keep the young man away from her throughout the camp. The youngsters enjoy their little adventure accompanied by a bonfire dance. Zion gives her a blog website address that she can use as her digital diary without fearing a breach of privacy. Next day, Delaney's parents have to leave for their hometown due to her grandmother's sickness, and the girl is left in Zion's mother's care. However, she decides to stay at her own home to avoid imposing on their family. Later, she gets scared to find a suspicious person knocking at her door and ringing the doorbell. So she hides behind the door with a broom, and soon, the door gets unlocked. But it turns out to be Zion, who tells her that the suspicious person left a mark on her door and got caught by the security guards. But after this, she can't stay home alone, and Zion's mother insists that she stays with them. The pair of best friends visit a market to buy some necessary stuff where they come across Kylie and Jason, who find it suspicious to see them together. Kylie manages to get her to spill the truth, which is soon followed by Maria's whiny call to Delaney that why wasn't she informed about this new update earlier. Maria gets to hear the girl talk to Zion's mother, who shows his cute childhood photos to Delaney while he embarrassedly snatches them away from the laughing girl. She even asks for more details like the best friend she's, always curious about their friend's love life. Zion and Delaney enjoy their time together filled with laughter and teasing. Next day, they overhear Zion's parents argue upon returning from school, but they pretend to be normal in front of them. Delaney consoles him about it later, citing the couple's arguments to be normal. But Zion looks disturbed as it's a daily occurrence for him due to his father's busy schedule. During school, the class comes to know about Harry's family having an accident, and their teacher urges them to show their support to their class fellow with some donation. Delaney and Zion give all of their pocket money away, making the once begrudged boy soften up to them and apologize for his previous attitude. On the other hand, Jason has been staying at Liam's home for some days because his father is against him going to the army. His father follows him there and starts scolding him in the middle of the road, which is witnessed by all of his friends. Zion finally steps up to talk to the older man and convinces him to let his son become a soldier. It's revealed that Jason's father himself is a soldier and thinks that his son may not be able to bear the hard life, but Jason idealizes his father and wants to follow his footsteps. He's finally prepared to leave for his military training in a week, so all of his friends decide to spend a day with him before his departure. They spend a day playing games and enjoying themselves together. Jason gifts his bike to Kylie, who keeps it with the promise of waiting for him. Few days pass by, and Delaney's grandmother passes away, prompting her to leave for her hometown. Spring Festival arrives while she's away consoling her father. On the other hand, Zion looks upset due to another argument between his parents as his father had to leave for some urgent task during the festival. Delaney cheers him up over the call, and they spend the festival evening talking to each other. Zion wins the second phase of the Math Olympics as well, and with this he gets Teacher Adam's permission to let Delaney be his deskmate again. Teacher Adam also praises her improvement in exams, and Zion assists her further with a study schedule that he devised for her. They spend the next few months working hard for the exams until D-Day arrives. Unfortunately, Delaney gets nervous during the exam and fails to do her best, so she cries it out with Maria in a karaoke bar and even gets drunk. She looks sad to think that she won't be able to accompany Zion to the top-ranked university they decided to attend together. On their way back, Zion and Liam come to pick them up, and Zion promises to support her once again. On the other hand, Maria finally finds enough courage to confess her feelings to Liam, and the man reciprocates them before finally sharing a kiss with her. Delaney decides to repeat a year of study to improve her grades in order to get admission in the same university as Zion. When Zion comes to know about her decision, he looks a bit shocked but promises to wait for her upon her request. He gives his mini robot to her as a gift, and the girl names it April. She then starts her final year studies again, and we see her working harder than ever, getting her teacher's appreciation. On the other hand, Zion finally uncovers the reason for his father's frequent day outs that even made his mother suspicious of him. His father's friend, Professor Noah, tells him that there are allegations against him for leaking the exam questions, and he's going through a trial. Zion assures his father that he trusts him, causing the older man to be relieved and emotional at the same time. Delaney's mother looks worried for her health as she's too engrossed in studies to care about any extracurricular activities. After much consideration, she requests Bruno to convince her to keep a balance between studies and other activities. When Bruno finally talks with her, assuring her of his and her family's unconditional support despite whatever decision she takes, Delaney finally opens up. She cries while telling him that she's doing this all to be able to hold her head high while walking with Zion. She doesn't want people to take her as someone not worthy to be with him. While they're talking, Zion comes there to say his goodbye as he's leaving for the university. However, he ends up overhearing their conversation while Bruno pats the girl in an encouraging manner and quietly leaves feeling burdened with the view. He leaves for the university without meeting her and doesn't even respond to her congratulatory message on the first day of university. He meets Professor Noah, who doesn't seem interested in a student's project, causing that person to hold a grudge against him and his favorite student, Zion. Edward overhears their conversation regarding the case Zion's father is trapped in and publishes the details on the university forum. This causes both the young boys to get into a fistfight, but Zion has to step back out of courtesy for the girl who accidentally got injured during their fight and brings her to the infirmary. Meanwhile, Delaney comes to his university to meet him, but finds Zion walking hand in hand with a beautiful girl and mistakes them for a couple. She leaves without meeting him and later texts him that they need to end their contact for her to help concentrate on her studies better. Time passes by, and December arrives. Delaney is reminded of one of her conversations with Zion where she expressed her desire to see fireworks before the world ends in December 2012 as per a prediction. Soon enough, she notices fireworks outside her window and runs out to find Zion, but the man is long gone. Delaney finds his university badge and vows to follow him soon. A few more months roll down and we finally watch her enter her dream university, followed by the very first scene of the series. Zion tells her to work hard, but refuses to keep any contact or associations with her. After he leaves with the robot toy, Delaney breaks into sobs. On the other hand, Zion goes to a hospital where he's urged to pay a bill as soon as possible. It's revealed that his father got sick on the night he went to light fireworks for Delaney outside her window. He had to leave in a hurry following his mother's call, and that's when his university badge fell down. The boy contemplates his inability to protect Delaney when he's incapable of protecting his own parents. Meanwhile, Delaney meets her new roommates Wen and Gia, who already know her thanks to the commotion she created outside the boys' dorm. They decide to go watch the robotics competition where Zion is participating. Later, Zion finds Delaney's digital diary's password in the robot's shirt and promptly opens it. He finds it hard to control his tears after reading the girl's feelings for her. In the robotics competition, Zion ends up losing it. Delaney ends up joining the animation club in her bid to get to know more about Zion from his classmates. Later that night, the freshers are invited to a party by the seniors, and they play the game, Truth or Dare. Edward asks her about the contents of her conversation with Zion on the day of her arrival, but she chooses to sing a song for them as a dare. Unbeknownst to her, Zion is working as a waiter at the restaurant and hears her melodious song that reminds him of their beautiful memories. Edward tries to insult him by making him note down their order, but Zion handles it patiently. He's later approached by Delaney, who offers him a tin drink while asking about the reason for his change. Zion discloses the matter of his father's health and asks her to move on and make new friends as he's now busy with jobs and study. As always, Delaney stubbornly refuses to go away from him before leaving dejectedly when he throws the cold drink in a trash bin. Behind her, Zion immediately retrieves the cold drink. He's dismissed from his job the same night thanks to Edward's complaint that says he wasn't professional enough. The young man takes his salary to his mother in the hospital and tells her not to worry about his expenses as he has his scholarship to support himself. His friend Alan shows him Delaney's pictures on a portal disclosing the possibility that someone is stalking her and secretly captures her photos before uploading them on the portal. When he returns to his rented room that night, Liam is found waiting for him at the door. The two friends meet after a long time and drink their worries away, discussing their problems. Liam reveals that unlike all the times when Maria dumped him, this time he has taken the lead to break up with the girl. But Zion looks nonchalant about it, as he's aware that the couple often fight their way to death before eventually running into each other's arms. Next day, Delaney takes Alan's help to locate Zion's new workplace and sends him a meal box in Alan's hands. However, he immediately realizes that the food container is from Delaney and comes out of the restaurant to confront her, but ends up catching her stalker. Zion accompanies her in the taxi to drop her at the dorms and gives her an alarm specifically designed to call for help against any kind of harassment. She presses him for an answer again, asking the real reason behind the evasion, so he tells her that he's leaving for studies abroad next year. When Liam hears about it from Zion, he urges him not to turn down the girl's sincerity, as Zion's own heart has always craved it. He tells him to continue his plans with Delaney in his life, but Zion seems to have picked on quite a harsh lesson from Liam and Maria's long-distance relationship. Meanwhile, Delaney decides to follow him to his next educational destination once again and gives an interview for his department's research scholar who will be sent abroad. The interview is to be followed by a test, so she starts preparing for it. She's met with an exasperated Zion who tells her not to bother with him, but ends up calling her stubborn behind her back as she refuses to listen to him. At the animation club, Delaney's drawings earn appreciation from an animation agency's editor. Her drawing even gets to be on the university's board that makes Zion extremely proud. On the other hand, Delaney prepares for the test diligently with the help of Zion's notes that reached her through an indirect route that is Alan, who gave them to Gia, who in turn shared them with her. Her hard work finally pays off, and she advances to the next step, that is solving coding problems in real time. Now she has to manage her time juggling between the animation club, the computer science lab, and her regular classes. Professor Noah asks her to solve an assessment, promising her a permanent position in the research team if she manages to solve it. However, Zion reveals that the assessment is meant for a final year student while she's just a fresher, but his teacher tells him to focus on his own research. Delaney decides to get his help regarding the problem, and they work together like good old times during the school. She even mentions how he's still as strict while teaching her as he was during the school. Zion tries to dissuade her from following his footsteps, and instead focus on what she finds interesting, such as her drawing. But stubborn as ever, Delaney stays the night at the computer lab while trying to solve the problem and finally cracks it down. Professor Noah looks impressed with her skills, but points out how she's not passionate about this field like Zion, despite having a similar method to decode problems. He urges her to reconsider her decision to join the research lab, but she stays adamant about it. She also leaves a chocolate box on Zion's table to thank him for his help. Seeing the box of chocolate on his table, Zion's classmate takes a piece from it, making him scold her as it's a gift from Delaney. However, Zara takes the whole box away angrily, promising to buy him a new one, and leaves before he could stop her. When Delaney sees that box on Zara's table at the animation club and inquires about it, the girl lies to her, saying it's a gift from Zion, which hurts her a lot. It's revealed that Edward also approached her some time ago and told her that Zion requested his professor not to accept her in the research team. Blind with rage and fury, she confronts Zion for giving her chocolates away and not valuing their friendship, if not her love for him. so she exclaims to never come to him again, and Zion decides to not tell the truth to her, as he believes that she'll be happy staying away from him. She's later approached by a well-dressed Bruno in his car while she's waiting for her bus. Turns out that he saw her photos on the internet and immediately headed out to meet her and bring her to an art exhibition. He also encourages her to utilize her talent for drawing. Delaney finally decides to take part in an animation competition which she had earlier refused, but her senior informs that the last date of submission has passed. She decides to talk to the editor herself and goes to her company. The chief editor advises her to leave her paintings behind, saying they'll consider her and decide after a discussion if she should be given a chance. Meanwhile, Maria comes to their university and demands from Zion to bring Liam out to meet her. He has to lie that Liam doesn't live with him, so she invites him out for a conversation. They meet at a cafe and Zion tells her to focus on her career instead of wondering about why Liam left without explaining anything to her. But Maria leaves angrily after telling him to imagine himself being left behind by Delaney, without a single word from her side about the reason for going away. She's later visited by her best friend at her hotel room, and Delaney decides to stay the night with her as they spend their time chatting away. Zion discovers that Delaney visited his professor and has backed down from the position in the research team, which leaves him a bit shocked despite his own efforts to convince her to do the same. Meanwhile, the magazine's chief editor likes Delaney's paintings and offers to sign a contract with her. However, she doesn't get enough time to read the terms of the contract and signs it without reading it. It's revealed that this all was arranged by Bruno, who invites the animation club's members to dinner. Delaney discovers that everyone seems to be familiar with him except her, who didn't know that he's associated with the magazine until now. She watches Zara give Zion a similar box of chocolates but decides against probing it. On the other hand, Zion looks jealous of Delaney and Bruno's frankness, especially when he admits liking her, so he steps out of the dining room in frustration. Later, Bruno tells him to stay away from Delaney, but he challenges him back that he'll forever stay with the girl. Delaney happens to overhear a part of their conversation, but still decides to not bother with Zion, even after he apologizes to her and confesses that he can't imagine a life without her. She states that she doesn't want to keep running after him and leaves him behind. Later, she advises Maria to do the same, but the girl has her own plans. However, they both support each other in their decisions. Delaney finds a drawing tablet inside the gift box that Bruno gave her. She finds it expensive and wishes to return it, but Bruno convinces her against it, saying it's his investment in her. Liam and Maria finally stumble upon each other in a bookstore, but he runs away before she could catch her. Maria instantly shares the piece of news with Delaney, calling Zion a liar for hiding the truth that Liam is in the same city and probably living with him. The pair of friends secretly follow Zion and reach his rented room where the boys are overheard talking about them. Maria threatens Zion to open the door, and as soon as she meets Liam, she starts beating him after pushing Zion and Delaney out of the room. The girl complains about him running away from his problems and leaves angrily when he refuses to realize his mistake. However, he soon runs after her to apologize, and the couple finally reunites, much to their friend's delight. Later that night, Zion visits his parents at the hospital and feels happy to see them caring for each other. He and his father have a conversation in the hospital corridor where the man reveals how he regrets not being able to spend more time with his mother due to his job. He urges him to not repeat the mistake and value the people who care for him. His father looks happy to hear that Delaney is studying at the same university as him, and Zion decides to confess his feelings to the girl after much consideration. Next day, Delaney and Zion leave for their respective competitions with a bunch of other students in the university's bus. After reaching the hotel, they're greeted by Bruno, who reveals that their competitions are being sponsored by his company. Zion insists on dropping the girl to her room, and on the way there, requests her to give him a chance to explain his stance. He then reveals that he had heard her talking to Bruno and crying in the fear of not being good enough for him. Her tears hurt him, so he decided to take himself away from her life so that she can stop pressurizing herself and focus on what is important for her. He also discusses how he didn't find himself worthy of her at her arrival time at the university, as he was burdened by a lot of responsibilities. However, he admits his failure in trying to not get attracted towards her again. But Delaney still doesn't soften up. She scolds him for taking her for a superficial girl who'd leave him at the first sight of a problem. Feeling helpless, Zion looks for Alan's help, who suggests taking Delaney's roommate Wen on board. The girls make a plan to visit the museum the next day, but instead of Wen, Delaney is met with Zion, who convinces her to go ahead with the plan as the tickets are quite expensive. They explore around and enjoy different games. Zion wears a mascot costume for her and buys her a lot of balloons as she expresses her love for them. However, he only manages to save one for her as a bunch of kids almost attack him and take the balloons away. By the evening, they get stuck in the rain and are reminded of their old times together. Delaney thanks him for lighting up the fireworks and admits that they gave her the courage to keep going. The atmosphere brings them to share a brief kiss before hurrying to part away. Upon returning to the hotel lobby, they meet Bruno, who tells her that he wants to recommend her to a comic book company as an artist, and she agrees after some reluctance. Zion then walks her to the room and requests her to go cheer on him for his competition the next day. He keeps waiting for her, but the girl doesn't appear, so he asks Edward and Alan to go ahead and give the presentation without him. After the competition, he meets Wen, who's also looking for the girl, and she suggests that the girl might still be in the animation club. Turns out, she was tricked into going to find some costumes by Zara, who locked her there. Delaney's handbag and mobile phone were also sent away in the loading truck, where she was loading up the necessary stuff before going to find the costumes that Zara requested. So Delaney was trapped there with no source of contact to the outside world. She's finally rescued by Zion, who then brings her to the competition hall, where he shows her something. The presentation consists of an animated version of her story, Little Monster. Delaney gets emotional watching it, and Zion officially proposes to her to be his girlfriend. However, they're caught by the guard before she manages to answer his question. Outside the hall, the guard asks them to write down their names, but Zion still looks more concerned about her answer. Delaney playfully says that she is not interested in relationships for the time being. By chance, Bruno comes there and the guard lets them go after realizing that they're his friends. Bruno drops them both to the hotel and tells Delaney to dress up for a dinner with the comic company's director the next day. She tells him not to worry about it before going ahead, while Bruno and Zion are seen locking horns with each other. Bruno warns him to stay away from Delaney, but Zion claims that he's forever going to be with her. They continue to bicker the next day as well, while Delaney is stuck between a rock and a hard place. Zion and Bruno compete with each other to buy her favorite juice and take her out for lunch. When she refuses the lunch, Bruno reminds her to stay ready for the dinner with the director, but Zion decides to tag along, saying he failed to treat him to a good meal, so this time he'll pay for the meal. Seeing this, Bruno also challenges him to invite everyone else as well, and Zion accepts the challenge. Delaney shares her frustrations regarding their childish antics with Wen, and tells her that she was initially going to accept Zion's proposal right away, but now she intends to play a little hard to get in order to avoid leaving the control in his hands. On the other hand, Zara approaches Bruno and offers to help him unite with Delaney, but the young man doesn't indulge her. Next day, all the participants go to the dinner hosted by Zion and play a game of cards, daring random numbers to do their bid. Zara dares number 4 and 5 to kiss each other that happen to be Bruno and Delaney. Zion silently switches his card with the girl upon discovering her number, and both the boys decide to have the punishment drink instead, completing the dinner. After dinner, Bruno tells Zion that he can keep Delaney more happy with his wealth, but Zion says that the decision is to be made by her alone. Zion wins the first prize for the competition and instantly leaves to meet Delaney. Behind him, a businessman approaches his friend Alan and asks him to pass his card to the boy as he wishes to discuss a business opportunity with him. On the other hand, Delaney goes to meet the comic company's director with Bruno. Bruno gives her a necklace to wear to the dinner, and she ends up accepting it on his insistence. Later, she doesn't like the director's suggestion to make changes in her comic, The Little Monster. The man suggests adding a romantic angle to the story alongside a villain, and when she tries to escape the hall with an excuse, Bruno holds her back. He tries to convince her that commercializing a project involves some changes, as the investors need to find a way to receive the maximum profit of their investment. His words force her to consider the options for some time. They move to a private room with the director to discuss the contract in detail. Delaney refuses to sign the contract upon learning that they plan to make more than 200 episodes of the comic and also intend to adapt it into a game. The businessman tells her to not give up on such a good opportunity, but Zion arrives there and supports her stance before taking her away. Before leaving, Delaney returns the necklace to Bruno and says that she only intends to do what really makes her happy. Once out of the place, the young couple confess their love to each other and promise to stay together. Next day, they return back to the campus, and they sit together while Delaney sleeps with her head on his shoulder. She has to leave immediately upon reaching the campus, as her magazine's chief editor requested some changes, and Zara takes the chance to ask Zion out for a date. However, he harshly scolds her to stay away from him and shows her the CCTV footage from the animation club's corridor, where she's seen locking the door to the room where Delaney had gone. He then warns her to stay away from both of them. Bruno's boss gives him a new project that contains Zion's file in it as well. On the other hand, Zion is informed that one of China's best companies is interested in his robot and has proposed a collaboration, but he refuses to work with them, much to Edward and Professor Noah's astonishment. When they ask about the reason for this decision, he reveals that their proposal is suspicious, and in fact they wish to buy the patent for this robot, without giving them any credit, thus wasting their years of hard work. He's later approached by Bruno, who proposes a project to him that involves hacking some information from their competitor's company. This project is his boss's proposal, and he specifically asked for the young man to lead this project. However, Zion promptly refuses the offer, but Bruno gives him a file that contains the information of the person who framed his father along with the proof of Zion's father's innocence. Bruno offers the file as the payment of the task, but he still fails to convince him and gets scolded by his boss for his incompetence. Meanwhile, Delaney buys Zion a pair of shoes, but he refuses to take them for free and pays her back. They're still discussing her comic venture with the comic magazine when she receives a call from her chief editor who discloses that a copyright claim has been made on her comic. The lady presents her the signed contract and asks her to pay the copyright claim's fee according to the contract's conditions. This infuriates the girl as they hid this from her at the time of the contract discussion. Not to mention, she was paid a meager salary for creating the comic that earned them a lot of profit. She goes to Zion's workplace to complain about it with him, and he asks her about her next plan of action. Delaney reveals that she'll try to talk things out with the author who filed for the copyright, and if she fails to convince the person, she'll have to pay the copyright claim worth 500,000 yuan. This leaves Zion worried for her, and he agrees to the robotics company's offer to buy the patent for his robot. He names his price for a 2-year contract to work with them beside the patent to be 500,000 yuan. Meanwhile, Delaney discovers that the compensation amount for the copyright claim has been paid off by Bruno, and she goes to meet him. However, the young man is found in a drunk state and she brings him home. Bruno confesses his love for her, but Delaney tears up saying she loves someone else. The man doesn't hold her back and Delaney rushes off to meet Zion, crying her heart out in his arms. Zion fails to understand what happened between them, but he meets Bruno the next day and tells him to stay away from his girl before leaving a bank card with the amount of 500,000 yuan in it. Bruno himself seems to be regretting his drunk confession. On the other hand, Delaney files a complaint against her magazine for their fraudulent behavior after finding out that they have scammed a lot of other artists as well. The incident leads to an inquiry against the magazine. She brings Zion's card to him and asks him about the source of this money, so he reveals that he sold the patent for his robot. He consoles the worried girl, saying he can always make another robot. Delaney also updates him about the whole matter and tells him that the author of the original comic liked her work and gave her the copyrights to work on it, thus reimbursing the amount paid for the claim. For their vacations, Zion visits Delaney's parents with her, who look excited to host him. Her mother warns the girl playfully to stay away from dating after all the hard work she has done to get into that university. She also requests Zion to look after her, and he obediently agrees to it. Zion proposes telling her parents about their relationship while doing the dishes, but Delaney decides against it, citing her mother's hot temper. Her decision is soon proved right when they see her brother trying to avoid her beating when she finds out a contact named Sweetheart in his mobile phone. Zion helps the young boy escape the beating upon being called a brother-in-law by him. Later that night, they visit Zion's home to clean it for his stay, and Delaney's mother happens to catch them in a suspicious situation, almost hugging each other. She questions her brother about it, and he reveals that they're dating on the condition that his mother returns his phone. Next day, Zion finds the atmosphere to be awkward at the breakfast table with Delaney's mother staring angrily at both of them. It doesn't help that her brother calls Zion brother-in-law and reveals that their mother is aware of them dating. Much to the couple's surprise, the older lady only looks angry at being kept in the dark because she doesn't mind it if the person her daughter dates is Zion. Delaney then sends Zion off to the city and later meets up with the rest of her school friends. They find out that Kylie and Jason are now officially dating, and Delaney also updates them about her and Zion. Kylie remarks that Zion still treats her like a child instead of treating her like a romantic partner, and she takes it to heart, deciding to change it. On returning back to the university, she expects her boyfriend to hug him, but he runs away to buy her coffee, proving Kylie right. She looks sad about it, but instantly perks up when he invites her out to meet. Once again, she's set to be upset when he brings her to the library to study together. Delaney tries to find romance in the situation by asking him to help her find a book, but even the deliberate seduction of inching closer to him between the racks turns out to be a disappointment. Her roommate suggests that she change her dressing style, so she goes to the university dressed stylishly, but Zion tells her to revert to her previous style, stating how cold it is. This time, she truly gets upset and tells him to treat her like a romantic partner instead of like a school desk mate. Astonished at first, Zion hugs her and apologizes for the negligence on his part. He then takes her on a romantic date and they spend a good day together. At night, Delaney finds her dorm gate closed as she failed to arrive before the curfew time, so she ends up staying the night at Zion's place. There, she finds the contract that he signed with the high-tech company and blames herself for his drastic step. However, Zion manages to talk her out of it, stating that the collaboration is useful for his future as well, because it's a giant company. They decide to sleep separately, but she ends up requesting him to come to bed as she finds it hard to sleep. Zion looks a bit nervous about it, but he soon calms down under her comforting words and goes to sleep. Next day, Delaney receives a call from an IT company that says that Zion is being investigated for leaking their company's information to their competitors. The news soon takes over the media, making his father's condition worse, while Delaney's parents are also left worried. She pretends to be all right on a call with them, but actually it's hard to control her tears. On the other hand, Zion is being investigated in the matter, and he reveals that he was asked to hack the company's information by their competitor, but he had long denied the offer. But he doesn't have an answer to the question as to why his source code matches the one that hacked their system. Bruno and his boss are also seen to be arguing as he blames his boss for releasing their competitor's information without thinking about the consequences, while his boss does the same to him. He's told to hire a good lawyer for the young man and get him out of the prison, as Zion knows a lot of their secrets. Delaney also approaches Bruno for help, but he apologizes while expressing his helplessness in the matter. Professor Noah calls her to the hospital where Zion's father is taken for an emergency surgery, which turns out to be successful, much to everyone's relief. He also helps their family hire a good lawyer for Zion. He's released on bail within 2 days, and Delaney rushes to meet him at his room. They cry upon meeting each other as Zion blames himself for causing trouble for her, but the girl prohibits him from thinking like that. Next day, his lawyer urges him to think about the possible culprit who could go to such an extreme to frame him. While Zion stays quiet, Delaney reveals to him later that she saw Edward's file in Bruno's office and even found him interacting with people from the victim company. Zion hacks Edward's system with an email, luring him out to the computer lab. There, they have an open conversation and Edward blames Professor Noah for always preferring him, but Zion reveals that Professor Noah applied for 2 students to be sent abroad, the other student being Edward. This shocks Edward because that scholarship abroad was the main reason he turned against Zion, thinking there's only 1 seat. Meanwhile, Bruno resigns from his company as he's getting tired of handling his boss's dirty dealings and sets off to meet Delaney on a bicycle. They meet at a cafe, and he gives her the file containing proof of Zion's father's innocence. They end up reviving their old friendship. Zion's father finally recovers his health, and they move back to their home in the town. Delaney and her parents also visit them to help them with unpacking, and the couple is caught red-handed by their parents as they hide behind a stack of cartons. Maria and Liam visit their respective friends and they discover that Jason has proposed to Kylie for marriage. Even Liam and Zion make a bet to see who proposes their girlfriend first. On the other hand, Delaney's mother mentions their childhood engagement to Zion's mother, who brushes it off saying that was when they were kids and that they shouldn't bother with it. Delaney gets worried to hear about it from Zion, but he encourages her not to worry about it. After returning to the university, he takes her to a date at a beautiful tower to fix her mood, but she keeps worrying about his mother's stance on their relationship. Zion tells her that they can always get engaged, even if their childhood engagement is considered null and void. He takes out a ring and proposes to her for marriage, leaving her shocked before she finally says yes, and he puts the ring on her finger. On the other hand, their mothers are seen happily discussing their marriage as they overcome their miscommunication. Turns out that Zion's mother was unaware of their relationship and was worried that Delaney's family may find them not worthy of their daughter due to the change in their financial condition. Delaney's mother also confesses that she thought she didn't like Delaney for her son, but that wasn't the case. The 2 women happily sip their tea while discussing their kids' wedding plans. Zion decides to give up his scholarship abroad to stay with Delaney, but she becomes angry and convinces him against it, stating that she's going to wait for him and doesn't wish for him to stay back because of her. He finally agrees and leaves after a tearful goodbye to his friends and Delaney. The couple continues to stay in a long-distance relationship, and gradually time passes by until her graduation day arrives. Zion surprises her by arriving at her graduation day, and they share a kiss on their first meeting after a long time. At night, the couple is seen at Zion's room where he tricks her into finding a box for him, which turns out to have all the things she ever gifted to him, proving that he has been in love with her far longer than she could imagine. The last box turns out to be a ring, leaving her emotional, while Zion once again proclaims his never-ending love for her. He proposes to her for marriage by going on a knee, and she accepts it before sealing it with a kiss. A few months later, they go to their school's reunion party, and teacher Adam looks happy to see them together. He even brags about how his suspicions were true regarding Zion and Delaney when they expressed their plans to get married soon. Teacher Adam secretly tells Delaney that just like she chose science for Zion, he had also chosen arts as his major for her. That was the reason he was getting scolded the day she went to submit her form for science. Immediately after she left, he had agreed to go for science as well. This leaves the girl smiling as she realizes how his love for her goes deeper than she ever thought. The pair also meets Bruno, and Zion decides to end the bitter things with a basketball challenge to the guy. He thanks him for all of his help for Delaney, and Bruno tells him to take care of her before they part ways to move on. The pair explore their fond memories scattered around the school and their old classroom. It's revealed that Zion once wrote a love confession for her in his book, and he shows it to her, but Delaney tells him that she had already read it in the past. They decide to get married and record their pre-wedding shoot in their school, as it's the place where everything started. Liam also proposes to Maria on the same grounds, and the series comes to an end with them living happily ever after.